So this video, grade 10s, is to talk about the cells, tissues, and organs. So since this is the second video, second teaching video of the day, you should by now have watched the first video that I posted on Edpuzzle. That is the Amoeba Sister video. So that Amoeba Sister video will give you a good broad understanding in terms of what are the different levels that we're talking about. Now, I'm going to be going through this slideshow here. You can access both the slideshow on here, the slide deck, as well as the student handout. So you're supposed to also use the student handout. You can access the link here and download that. So it should look something like this, okay? So this here will be going over, I'm gonna go over using the slideshow as a guide to go over this so that you can also name a few things to explain the information a little bit better, okay? Now, so in this case, you have, from the Amoeba Sister video, we talk about cell. This part here of the levels of organization in biology, this is actually quite an important concept because what we do notice is that so in this case, we have spent time before the holiday talking about cell. We talk about different organelles, and I heard that you guys said, "Oh, we learned this in grade 8. What are different organelles? What are the different structures?" Now, the thing is this: what we're going to be talking about is the different levels. How do they build up on top of each other? You do notice that some of the same concept will build upon itself. So there's usually something that it's the same kind of thing in the cell, and you see the same kind of thing in tissue, and same kind of thing in organ system. I'm going to clarify that a little bit later on, but let's go with the slide first. So in this case, now we've learned about this generalized cell. So basically, you learned a generalized plant cell. You learned about generalized animal cell. Now, the thing is this: we are going to look at specialized cell because you've learned about generalized cell, but our body, most living organisms, do have cells that are specialized for specific tasks. So, right now, can you name what type of cell this is? Pause the video right here, or on the Edpuzzle, there should be a question by now. Now, this is actually a red blood cell. Now, look over here. What do you think this is? Again, write your answer. This is a neuron, or basically the nerve cell. Now, the reason why we have these special kind of cells is I'm pretty sure you have heard of stem cells before. Stem cells are essentially, if you think about it, or a quick way to talk about it would be when a sperm and an egg, one from dad, one from mom, come together, come to a fertilized cell. This, if you think about it, that was a fertilized egg. You go from one cell to billion and gazillion cells that makes up you. So in this case, that original fertilized egg, it's almost like a stem cell. It's from that very generalized cells to specialize into various cells as time goes on. So in that 9 months in the womb, that one cell become 2, 4, 8, and so forth, so on. That is a process of specialization. That is the cells taking on special roles. Yes, they all have the same DNA. However, some of the cells will take on certain roles, so certain part of those DNA will be used, and certain part will not. So you end up having a lung cell. You have a pancreas cell. You have a heart cell, so on and so forth. So you start from totipotent embryonic stem cell. You have then a pluripotent embryonic stem cell, and you have a multipotent stem cell. So as time goes on, these cells become more and more specialized. So in this case, there's a good thing side to it, is that this is actually the way it goes. You have talked about, there are a lot of talk about stem cells research. Basically, you take stem cells either from an embryo or from the cord blood, so the umbilical cord. You take some of those cells there. You can potentially use it for some things later on. But usually, these later uh, stage stem cells, you don't have as much flexibility to do certain things. So, for example, this part here, I'm gonna try to make the slide a little bit bigger, zoom in a little bit more. So, this line of stem cell, it's going to make red blood cell and heart muscle. So if you somehow can harvest some of that, you can't make it to turn it into a skin or a neuron. Okay. However, if you talk about something from an earlier stage of development, a totipotent embryonic stem cells, usually that's from a blastocyte. That's an embryo that's about 4 or 5 days old. That's pretty early on in terms of the fertilization. That you can pretty much turn into whatever you want. But later on, stage stem cells, you don't have that flexibility. Okay, so the reason why we have specialized cells, because stem cells go on a process of specialization. Now, let's go on these. Now, we have four main types of tissue. So when you have the cell level, after cell level, you go to tissue. Now, tissue, as you can see here, this is a definition. So you have specialized cells working together, and then you have specialized tissue working together, make an organ, and so on and so forth. So in some ways, we're going to be, for this slide, only talks about four types of tissue. There are probably other types of tissue. We're not going to focus on that right now. Okay, so looking at this diagram, can you name this type of tissue? Now, this will probably be a muscle cell. Okay, this will probably be a muscle cell. Now, organs, you have tissues working together. So, looking at this, what system do you, or what organs can you identify? Okay. Now, this here is the digestive system. So basically, you have the esophagus, you have the stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and then large intestine, and the anal sphincter. So, yep, you don't see the liver in here. So you should have a flap called epiglottis around here. So these are the different organs, and as we kind of talk about it, organs that has the same function, specialized function, come together and form organ systems. Okay, so you have organs working together. So earlier, this was digestive system. This is the circulatory system. Okay, circulatory system, or the blood system in the IB biology. So you have your heart. Blue is usually the vein. Red is usually the arteries. Now, how many organ system can you name? Okay, pause that. How many organ system can you name? Now, here's some examples of organ of epithelial cell, tissue, and then you have small intestine. So you have epithelial cells and tissues pretty much anywhere, but we're looking on the epithelial tissue on the small intestine. Okay. Now, next slide. And we're going to look at some specialized cells. So if you look at your handout, blah, blah here, this goes with your hand up here. So you have these specialized cells here. 1, 2, okay, smooth muscles cells. So these are some examples of small specialized cells. So this one is on your taste buds. Okay, So if you look at your handout here, that's your taste receptor cell. These are the special features. Those are the functions. Now you can read, your grade 10, you can read. So what I'm going to ask you to do is now think about an analogy. So using the handout, reading these, what is the analogy for a taste bud? Okay, write this down. Now the goblet cell, okay, again, the goblet cell, this is part of your small intestine, okay? So small intestine, colon is another name for large intestine. So this produces mucus to help move food and waste along. So looking at this, what do you think? Can you give me an analogy? Type that in right now. Okay. Now, this is an example of an absorbed cell. Okay. You can find these usually because the small intestine, the main role of small intestine is to absorb nutrient, transfer them into blood. So this is a picture of that. So look at the features, structures, look at the function. Can you give me an analogy on that? Okay. Last but not least, smooth muscle cell. So how does the structure of this tissue enable to perform its function? So you know this muscle cell, you have usually, your muscle cells, you can relax, you can also tense them up. So in this case, when the muscle cells relax, it loosen up like this, but when it's tense, you notice all these intermediate filaments, they would actually tense up together, and then when you relax, okay, maybe you don't see it that much, but basically it will shorten the distance. So all these dense bodies, you notice that they're closer together when it's contracting. So how does this structure enable to perform its function? Okay, write that down right now. Okay. Now, as you can see at the tissue level, you actually see a number of different specialized cells working together. Okay, so on the small intestine, you have goblet cells that mix mucus. You have absorber cells that absorb nutrients. They are working together to make up the epithelial tissue of the small intestine. And then at the organ level, you have the muscles, which allow smooth muscles, and you have the connective tissues. This comes together to form the organ of the small intestine. Okay. So right now on a puzzle, write down one of the most important things you learned from today's lesson. Okay. And what I want you to do today, at the end of this, after you filled all this out, you to do these homework questions. Okay, do these you try questions. I want to see that. I want you to do these you try questions, and I will check them before next lesson. Okay. Have a good day. Now I'm gonna have office hours. I haven't thought about what time in the afternoon I have office hours yet. But again, make sure you if you watch this during the 45-minute class time, I will have some videos. I'll have some class time now so that you can ask me questions. If you want to work on it and ask me questions later on office hour, that is fine too. Okay, but I do want to check in and see that you have the puzzle things done as well as this completed. Okay, that is the plan for today. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email, or actually you can comment on the document here. Okay, you will have documentation. You will have the you'll have the right to comment. Okay, and in some ways, commenting on here it's good because if one person have questions, the other people might have questions on it too. Okay.